Welcome to Washington. I'm Brett Baer. President Obama apparently has the makings of a revolt on his hands concerning his promise to shut down the detention facility at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba by next January and bring at least some of the detainees to the U.S. Today, Senate Democrats discussed voting with Republicans on two key amendments that would further tie the president's hands on what is becoming a political and legislative headache for the new commander-in-chief. Correspondent Shannon Bream shows us what happened.
Today, Republicans and Democrats joined forces to shoot down the millions in funding that President Obama would need to close the Guantanamo Bay Detention Center by his self-imposed deadline of January 2010. With a bipartisan voice, senators said they are unwilling to authorize $80 million for the closure without a concrete strategy for dealing with the detainees who would need to go elsewhere.
We need a plan to move forward, and we should not close Guantanamo Bay until we have a comprehensive, detailed, legal strategy as to what we will do with these prisoners.
It is up to the administration to fashion a plan which can win the support of the American people.
The administration seems to be taking the defeat in stride, conceding that there is much work to be done to convince lawmakers.
We understand and agree that before resources are handed down, the Congress deserves more detail in a plan.
One of the toughest tasks still facing the administration is selling the concept of terror detainees coming to the U.S. The president's Pentagon policy chief, Michelle Flournoy, says it's unrealistic to believe that none of the detainees will come here, and clearly there is a vocal minority in the Senate willing to consider that possibility, even highlighting options like the Supermax prison in Florence, Colorado.
This facility houses not only drug kingpins, serial murderers, and gang leaders, but also terrorists who have already been convicted of crimes in this country.
No prisoner has ever escaped from a federal super maximum security facility in the United States.
But FBI Director Robert Mueller has yet to be convinced. Testifying before the House Judiciary Committee today, he expressed growing apprehension about bringing terror suspects to the states.
Providing financing to terrorists, radicalizing others with regard to extreme violent extremism, the potential for individuals undertaking attacks in the United States. All of those are concerns.
Senate Minority Leader Republican Mitch McConnell says that's exactly why Congress needs to know every detail about the men still detained at Guantanamo Bay. McConnell is fighting to require a full threat assessment on every one of them. He believes that information, along with the unsettled question of where to send the terror suspects, may force the president to reconsider his plans.
The decision to have an arbitrary deadline for the closing of Guantanamo was a mistake. It's a mistake that needs to be revisited.
The McConnell amendment calling for those individual threat assessments would also require the president to report to Congress before releasing any detainee. We expect that amendment to go to a vote within the hour. Brett.
Shannon, thank you. We are about 1/4 of the way through the president's timeline for closing Guantanamo Bay, and he is scheduled to give a major speech on the subject Thursday. But there is no plan, and Congress, as you saw, is balking. State Department correspondent James Rosen tells us where we are and where we go from here.
There we go, President Obama said after signing the executive order that committed the United States to shutting down the detention facility at Guantanamo Bay within 1 year. 4 months later, fewer than 250 days remain to meet that goal, yet the White House insists it will be met.
The president signed an order early in his administration to close it, and he intends to keep that promise.
Attorney General Holder, head of an interagency task force examining what should be done with the remaining detainees at Gitmo, told reporters progress is being made every day.
We have 200 people who are engaged in this effort. A substantial number of those people are reviewing the 240 or so individual files that remain.
But substantial hurdles also remain. The State Department is conducting secret negotiations with 30 foreign countries to see which ones will accept custody of detainees from their lands and abide by promises not to torture them or allow them to return to terrorist activity. So far, these talks have yielded little visible progress, making it increasingly likely some detainees, possibly as many as 100, will indeed be transferred, despite objections by lawmakers and concerns expressed by the FBI, to facilities on American soil. Indeed, a senior State Department official said Wednesday, quote, as a way to encourage other countries to take some of these detainees, I think it's fair to say that the U.S. should be prepared to do the same. It's a prospect that does not seem to disturb the White House.
There are people convicted of terrorism in our prisons, and the president is confident that the people that are in our prisons now are locked away securely.
But even that option is not so easily pursued. Former Assistant Secretary of Defense for detainees, Charles Stimson, seen here inspecting Gitmo in September 2006, that year conducted the first classified study of how to close the facility. He told Fox News that study concluded that even the most secure prisons in the United States will require substantial physical upgrades in order to accept one or more detainees from Gitmo.
And that's just the facility itself. You're going to have to look at the perimeter of the facility, and then the town, and then the county, and then the state to figure out how they can improve their security posture. And so, to my knowledge, none of that has happened outwardly yet.
Now, as you mentioned, Brett, the president tomorrow morning is set to deliver at the National Archives what his aides are billing as a major address on national security issues, including those surrounding the closure of Gitmo. But the commander-in-chief will not have center stage entirely to himself. Former Vice President Dick Cheney, who has been so outspoken on national security issues lately and to the minds of some Democrats effective in reframing the debate about them, will be speaking about the same issues at the same time.